Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, welcome to the weekly comic book review here on Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, and this is the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first of all, I got to give a big shout out to David Hatch. David Hatch has been one of our longest supporting patrons on our Patreon page pretty much since we started it. David, thank you so much. You go above and beyond in every single endeavor. You are top-notch PCP Army material. So thank you so much, David, for your support. If you want to join David in his support, check us out at patreon.com/PCP. And now it's time to get right into the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, These Savage Shores, #3 from Vault Comics. I got an early look at this one about a few weeks ago, right? So I did a video of this one and Wasted Space, both from Vault Comics, both out today. These Savage Shores was just so fantastic. Such an amazing book. Now, today is an amazing new comic book day. We are in for a treat. There are so many great books out today. These Savage Shores, #3, is just right there, right above the rest of them, because this book is just so fantastic. Ram V has crafted this piece of historical horror fiction with a lot of themes about humanity, war, and the monster inside, things like that. Great dialogue, a great dense story with a lot of meat to it, and of course vampires and stuff like that, right? It's really great story. It's set in the 1700s in India during the whole Britain trying to come in and take things over and all the different warring factions, and it's got very interesting historical notes to it, but it's also just a masterful piece of comic book fiction. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. The artwork by Sumit Kumar and Vittorio Astoni is just elegant. It's beautiful. It absolutely knows how to use the space on the page better than any other comic book on the market right now. It's dense and complex, but it has plenty of room to breathe. It's very spacious. It gets the point across, provides atmosphere and mood. This is an absolutely beautiful, elegant book. Bidikar's lettering, top notch on this book. The team at Vault just does amazing high quality content pretty much across their whole line. These Savage Shores is seriously right up there at the top. One of the best books on shelves right now. Definitely, in my opinion, the best book out on shelves today. These Savage Shores, #3, pick of the week. And right behind it is Wasted Space, #6. This is my #2, just barely #2 book. The returning Wasted Space, returning for its second story arc. This book is great. The world that writer Michael Morrissey has built in this, a very gritty, satirical, edgier version of Star Wars, you know, if you will, with a little bit of Preacher and Philip K. Dick kind of infused in it, right? The second story arc kicks off with a big bang, really fun stuff. New characters are introduced, new concepts and mythology to the world that has been built up in Wasted Space. Just great work all the way around, especially from Hayden Sherman and Jason Wordy. That's the art team. Amazing artwork. It's gritty, it's raw, it's edgy. It's exactly like the tone of the story, the script. It's exactly what this book needs. It's so masterful, so great. Big, rambunctious, crude, rude, and lewd sci-fi blast. This book is awesome. It's great. Really just keeps everything going. If you liked Arc 1 and you're worried about this book going as an ongoing and how it's going to keep that pace going, no worries. It keeps the pace going like crazy. Both of these books are out today from Vault Comics. I had an early look at them in a previous video, so check that one out too. I'll talk a little bit more about them. But Wasted Space #6 was great. Jim Campbell on the lettering just wraps it all up in a nice bow. Vault Comics doing high quality content. Wasted Space #6, no exception. And if you haven't read Wasted Space, it's a great place to jump onto it, but I do highly recommend that you pick up the Wasted Space trade paperback and read that first, and then jump right into this exciting issue. And if you want to check that out, I'll throw a link down below to an Amazon link where you can check it out. Buy it, and if you buy it, help support PCP just a little bit. So let's get on with a big book from Marvel, the relaunch of Daredevil. Daredevil #1. We've been building up to this. We've been anticipating it because writer Chip Zdarsky has just really been blowing us away lately with his Marvel work. Marvel 2-in-1, that latest first issue of The Invaders, and Spectacular Spider-Man. He's been doing great work, great character work, and he knows the history of Marvel Comics. So let's see that apply to Daredevil. Now, I am even more interested because Daredevil was always one of my favorite comic books, especially in that late 90s, early 2000s period where you had Kevin Smith, David Mack, Brian Michael Bendis, Ed Brubaker. It was just like non-stop. Daredevil was guaranteed to be a top-notch book. And ever since Shadowland, aside from the Mark Waid run, which is definitely a different kind of Daredevil, more of the more positive, poppy Daredevil from the 60s, which that was a great thing to get back to. But it's also great to see Daredevil go back to that gritty Frank Miller type roots. Just see that, not the roots of the character. The roots of the character were a little bit more poppy and rambunctious, right? Anyway, this is definitely a Daredevil book, and it's really good, and I liked it a lot. I wasn't really down on Charles Soule's writing, didn't really like his approach to the character, haven't really liked the character that much outside of the Waid run. So what's going on? This book is great. Daredevil, The Death of Daredevil, what came before? Do I need to know? Not really. They explain it all. Marco Cicchetto's on the artwork, and he doesn't color himself. He has help on the coloring. The coloring is done by Sonny Gaho. A fantastic coloring work. It's a little bit different than what we're used to from Cicchetto, but it's definitely a crisp style. It definitely fits his tone. Really great coloring, really great artwork, really solid stuff. It's Daredevil. It flashes to the past, it introduces a couple new characters, it tells us a little bit about his world. It's Daredevil, it's Matt Murdock, and it's all good and it's all great. And I loved this issue. I thought it was great. Chip Zdarsky understands the character of Matt Murdock. He understands the history of the title. He understands all the different variations and versions of Matt Murdock and how it all becomes one person. He's a Catholic. He's crazy out there trying to jump around, fix things for justice. Great book. I really did like it. Daredevil #1. It's a fresh start. Check it out. Uncanny X-Men #11 is here. So this is the book where now that Disassembled is over and all the X-Men are presumed dead pretty much except for just a handful, Cyclops is back. So this is Cyclops trying to figure out what's going on, where are the X-Men. So as the Age of X-Men's going on, and we know that the X-Men are alive just in some kind of other reality created by Nate Gray, Cyclops and the rest, they don't know that. So now it's really cool because it's like the polar opposite of what the world is like in Age of X-Men. Mutants are really hated and feared even more so than they ever were. They're trying to eradicate them. Things are getting really bad. Cyclops is back and he doesn't know what to do, and he's trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what to do. Matthew Rosenberg does a great job on this one. When I first got it, it's super huge. It's $7.99. I hate the idea that yet again, within just a couple of months, it seems, we've got another $7.99 issue of Uncanny X-Men. Is it justified? Well, I will tell you this, that this book finally starts feeling like what a lot of X-Men fans, I think, have been wanting and anticipating and expecting for a good long while now. X-Men Disassembled came in and just wiped out pretty much every existing dangling plot thread in a way. They brought back Cyclops, and in this one, Cyclops, a little bit of Wolverine action. It's got some backup stories that do matter to the overall story. One story is mostly from Cyclops' perspective. The other one is mostly from Wolverine's perspective. So a lot of X fans are going to be pleased with this. Cyclops and Wolverine back in an X-Men book. You clear off all the other X-Men and all the other baggage off the board, and you start back with the two X-Men, and then you build them back up, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Great character work. Decent artwork from Salvador La Roca. Not the best. It felt a little static, a little stiff for me. The artwork throughout this wasn't exactly what I would consider the best of the week, but the writing was pretty solid, and it was a good, fun X-Men book, and I think a lot of people are going to cheer at a certain moment in this book just like I did. So that's what I think about it. Age of X-Men, Marvelous X-Men. So the Age of X-Men is kind of like the Age of Apocalypse, but without the super weight that the Age of Apocalypse had, because in the Age of Apocalypse, all the X-Men titles ended and continued on with new titles, albeit though with the same creative team, right? So it just felt like it had more of an impact on the overall X-Men universe. This, we know that the X-Men are okay. Everybody else here thinks that they're not. So we know that they're okay. They're just in this crazy world, the world of X-Men, the Age of X-Men. So I like the throwbacks to the Age of Apocalypse, but this is like the exact polar opposite of the Age of Apocalypse. Things are kind of happy here. Everybody's a mutant. Everybody accepts the X-Men. The only problem is, at what cost do you keep this society alive? So this is Marvelous X-Men #1. It's the first part of a 4-part miniseries of a whole bunch of miniseries that are going to be exploring the ins and outs of the Age of X-Men, and of course the end of the Age of X-Men, when it all gets reintegrated back in to a cohesive X-Men book, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. That being said, Marvelous X-Men #1 was actually really good. I liked it. It's written by Zach Thompson, Lonnie Nadler, artwork by Marco Faya and Matt Mia. Really did like this one. I thought it was pretty good. I'm enjoying this Age of X-Men stuff. It's pretty interesting. So that's what I thought about it. Old Man Quill is here, continuing the Old Man line books. Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye. The writer of Old Man Hawkeye, Ethan Sachs, is back for Old Man Quill. This is Old Man Star-Lord. And it was all right. It wasn't as good as Old Man Logan was, and it definitely wasn't as good as Sachs' work on Old Man Hawkeye. The artwork was okay. It wasn't absolutely my favorite. That's Robert Gill, but it was pretty decent. It gets the job done. But something about it just didn't grab me. But I don't know. It is the story of Peter Quill as an old man, and he has gone through a major loss, a major tragedy, and he's down on his luck, and he gets wrangled up by the old men Guardians of the Galaxy to go back to Earth. And then what's going on with Earth? Obviously, the villains have taken over. So it's an interesting idea. The execution, though, just was a little, I don't know, it was a little clunky for me. That's what I thought about it. Avengers #14. This book was awesome. Blade is now pretty much, for the most part, a full-fledged Avengers, at least for this story arc. At least. I'm just such a Blade fan. I want to see Blade, and Blade done right. And the best way to do Blade is to respect what came before with the Tomb of Dracula stuff by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. And, of course, the stuff that they did in the 90s with Night Stalker, and, of course, the Wesley Snipes Blade movies. You got to integrate that in with it as well. And it just feels like they always stumble when it comes to Blade. Jason Aaron didn't stumble here. This Blade is funny. He's got a couple cheesy lines, but if you hear it with Wesley Snipes delivering it, you know, Blade has some cheesy lines in that one, too. Really fun stuff. I really like the Blade spotlight. I really like this overall story. There's this new, like, bad vampire awesome dude, like Colonel Shadow. That person is awesome. I really like this. Basically, they burn down Castle Dracula, and all the vampires go to war, and it just causes crazy commotion and chaos. And so, of course, you know, Blade's all up in the middle of it. Decent artwork by David Marquez, my bad. Not the best artwork, not the cleanest, but some really nice Blade moments. And seriously, silver nunchucks. Never thought I wanted it, but I did, and now I'm glad I have it. Immortal Hulk #13 is out this week, and I am did a 180 on this book. This Hulk in Hell story has really cemented this as just one of my favorites right now from Marvel Comics. I was really hesitant. At first, I really liked it, the first couple issues. Then I felt like it didn't quite lean in enough into the horror aspect of it. But in Hulk in Hell, this whole story, it's not even just gone 100% bonkers into horror territory. It's gone 100% into like crazy philosophical type stuff, and I really, really like it. I like the exploration of the themes and the idea of the shadow and the tree of life, and I really like this stuff. I think it's really good. Joe Bennett is pumping out the artwork of his career here, especially with Roy Jose and Paul Mounts helping out on the inking and the coloring. This is fantastic stuff. This is just so good. And I know so many people were into this book for so long, and I just said, I just can't quite get on board with it. These last few issues, they've grabbed me, and they just ain't letting go. Killmonger #4 is here, the penultimate issue. One of our favorite words here at PCP. Killmonger has been a treat. It's been a joy. It's been great. It's written by Brian Hill with artwork by, is it Ryan? Juan Ferreira. Fantastic artwork. I really like it. It's elegant. It's got a great sense of pace, a great sense of composition and layout. The artwork is fantastic. The story is great. It's really fleshing out the character of Killmonger. The character of Killmonger is very intriguing and engaging already in the comic books, but in the movie, Michael B. Jordan's performance really just hit a nuance of it that we've never seen before. And Brian Hill's bringing that in to the existing Marvel Universe version and kind of telling a Killmonger Year One type story. And they're doing an amazing job with it. High octane action and energy when it needs to be. Great solid slow moments right before the violence explodes. Love the art, love the script, love the writing, love the characterization, love everything about it. Killmonger, blowing me away. Conan the Barbarian #3 is here. The best issue of the relaunch yet so far. Jason Aaron's a great writer. And Conan's not necessarily my favorite character or my favorite book. It's not really something I've ever been that hardcore into, but this was really good. I thought this was great. Azar's artwork was the best yet for me. I thought it had a more of a depth and a definition and a richness to it that we didn't have in some of the previous issues. Really great stuff, very violent, very epic, and a very nice just little one and done story of Conan set in this cradle of this one story that Jason Aaron's telling, that's basically giving him leeway in 12 issues to tell the entire life story of Conan in a way, and they're doing a great job. So I think they got me hooked in to continue reading this one for just a minute longer. Gunhawk. Gunhawk's #1 is another one of these 80th anniversary Marvel celebrations. This is a celebration of all the Western comics from Marvel, because the very first Marvel comic, Marvel Comics #1 from 80 years ago, had a Western story in it. So they've been celebrating horror, they've been celebrating sci-fi, twisted, crazy stuff. This is the celebration of the Western comic, and it was all right. It's done by the Lathams, so David Latham and Maria Latham, with artwork by Luca Passari, and the artwork's cool, and it's a little gritty, and it's exactly what it needs to be. It's a cliche Western story. So out of all these one-shots, I think Crypt of Shadows and The Journey into Mysteries have been pretty interesting, but this Gunhawks one was all right. I think if you're the most hardcore Western fan, check it out. If you're just the most hardcore Marvel 80th anniversary one-shot completist, definitely check it out. Otherwise, it's kind of skippable. Tony Stark Iron Man is here with issue #8. Great cover, looks really cool. A lot of hype built around this book just on that cover alone. So what's happening in the story inside? It's all right. Dan Slott's run on Iron Man to me is getting a little clunky. This controller thing's been going maybe just a bit too long. I don't like this idea that they're in this VR game world. I just don't really like it. It just feels a little clunky, a little rushed, a little off, a little elongated, a little too much, right? I do like the idea of the controller in here. They do something with the controller that's kind of interesting, and I think that's cool. But just ultimately, this book is not really dazzling me. Not like Slott's Fantastic Four. That one, especially those last couple issues, just really hitting a good stride. I feel like maybe Slott should maybe step back and just focus in on Fantastic Four and make that book 110% even better. But Tony Stark Iron Man, it's all right, but it's just kind of dull, not interesting. It's just starting to feel a little clunky, a little just too muddy, a little just too free and loose. Not structured enough or something. I don't know. Star Wars Age of Republic, another one-shot focusing on Anakin Skywalker. This has been one of the weaker ones of these one-shots, though ultimately these one-shots have been quite impressive to me. They haven't been like knock your socks off, change your life type stuff, but they've been fun and decent for Star Wars one-shots, focusing on some random cool characters throughout the series. We've been focusing on the prequel ones, so this is a little story about Anakin Skywalker, and it's all right, but it's not the best. It's okay. Let's go over to DC Comics. Female Furies is out this week. #1, 6-issue miniseries, written by Cecil Castellucci, with artwork by Adriana Milo and colors by Hi-Fi. It's all right. It was just a little silly, a little too much silly. It's got some interesting things. Definitely has something to say that is worth saying, but putting it against the new gods kind of thing just made it feel a little cartoony, a little silly. It just didn't really work for me. I get it, but it just didn't work for me. It kind of set back in the early days. It tells you a lot about Granny Goodness and her origin and who the female Furies are, so that's kind of cool. I mean, Big Barda, all that, but really focuses on some of the other characters, which I really liked. But it's all right. It feels like they're just trying to ride in on the success of Mr. Miracle, and it's not that. It's not that at all. Young Justice #2 is here. This issue takes a step back from the high energy of issue #1, and it kind of just spotlights Cassie, Wonder Girl, right? And I think that's cool. So it definitely seems that what Bendis is going to do is he's going to take the first arc to build up the story about Gem World, which is incredibly interesting to me. Amethyst was one of my favorite comic books and still is. I love that book for some reason. I love that crazy world and just the mythology, all the different gems and the houses and stuff like that. I really like it. So I like the integration of that into here, but it definitely seems like Bendis is going to kind of devote an issue towards a character. So this is going to be Cassie's issue, and it seems like next one is going to be Superboy. So no big Superboy revelations. What's been going on with that? Him or Impulse? You don't really know yet. Don't really quite get any of the questions answered yet, except for some interesting questions start getting proposed about Wonder Girl. But this was a great issue. I did like it. A little inconsistent in the artwork because Gleason is joined by Lupacino, but it does still work. I do like the story. I did like it, but some people may feel like it was too quick to step back, and maybe it was. That would be my one fault I have with issue 2 of Young Justice, is that issue 1 just was so big, epic, and wild and brought everything out, and then now we just slow it down and focus in on one character for a moment, do some backstory. It feels like a little halt in momentum. Probably definitely read better in a trade. We'll have to see what happens in issue 3, but I still did like it. Batman number 64 is here with the first part of The Price of Justice. It's going to be a crossover, a 4-part crossover that's running through Batman and Flash this month. It's really annoying because Tom King is right in the middle of his Nightmare story, and this completely just derails that and negates it as you're reading it monthly. And of course, in trades, it's going to be different. But that does suck. I wish they could have scheduled that a little bit better. Joshua Williamson writes this. It's basically a team up between Batman and Flash. It's going to be about the fallout from Heroes in Crisis. The death of Wally gets mentioned. Finally starts making an impact on the outer DC Universe line of books. But some interesting things with some interesting Batman characters. Some things that were set up back in the day by Tom King start to kind of blossom here. And that's interesting. It was an alright issue. Gilliam March's artwork was all right. It was a little sloppy at times for me. Had some missteps, at least, I think. But the script was all right. It was okay. It hasn't been at the level that Batman typically has been, but it seems like it could be an interesting little story, especially about the thing I can't talk about because I don't want to spoil it, but if you're a clever-eyed reader, you can look at some of the ads and tell what I'm talking about. Anyway, Justice League number 17 is here with a really interesting comic book. First of all, written solely by Scott Snyder with artwork solely by Jim Chung. So the artwork is exactly what you want to see. And the artwork is detailed, it's rich. The coloring by Mori is fantastic. And the story by Scott Snyder is very interesting because Snyder has created these two opposing energies in the DC Universe, and they're represented almost by Martian Manhunter, the leader of the Justice League, and Lex Luthor, the leader of the Legion of Doom, right? And they're different ideologies, and they're different ideas about the universe at large, and just these different opposing forces of good and evil, but more about justice and doom, justice and fate, things like that, right? So really cool things, but they do, Snyder reveals some things about the past of both Martian Manhunter and Lex Luthor, and how they may possibly even have a deeper connection than we ever realized, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Great little character work. He says that a lot was going to be explained in these last few issues. He was not lying. Between this, the annual, and that Escape from Hawkworld story, man, so much has been just laid out on the table for Justice League, so much more than I thought would have been at this point, and I'm like gobbling it up, and just take me for a ride because I am loving it. Justice League right now is one of my favorite superhero books. It continues to be so. I love this really, really delicate and at times explosive and nuanced approach and exploration on the relationship between Lex Luthor and Martian Manhunter. Really cool stuff. The Green Lantern number 4 is here by the Grant Morrison and the Liam Sharp and colored by the Steve Oliff. Holy cow, the artwork in this book is amazing. Detailed, rich, textured, beautiful compositions, beautiful layouts, amazing pages, just fantastic stuff. Absolutely, Liam Sharp is doing the best work of his career here. And Grant Morrison's doing a pretty good job as well. Making a weird, zany Green Lantern book that is one part stereotypical cop drama and one part Grant Morrison crazy cosmic goodness with a little bit of just fun and wildness and subversiveness. Really love this book. Really fun stuff. Hal Jordan is very much like a very macho, just strong-jawed cop. Doesn't really get into like really delicate bits about his character, but it's just such a fun book. It feels like a 2000 AD book. It feels like something from younger creators. These guys are veterans of the industry, and they're doing work with the energy of 20-year-olds, and it's amazing. It is fantastic to see it, and I am just so pleased to be able to read this and talk to you guys about it. Morrison and Sharp on Green Lantern. Wow, I've loved it so much. The artwork is clean, it's beautiful, the ideas are wild and zany, and they're there, and it's funny, and it's fun, and it takes every cliche of a cop drama and it turns it on its DC cosmic head, and it just does it exceptionally well. This issue is no exception, and longtime Grant Morrison DC fans are really going to like some of the revelations in that issue. Adventures of the Super Sons number 7 is here. Knowing what's going on with Jonathan Kent right now, it's kind of bittersweet to read this, because one of the best things about DC Rebirth was the relationship between Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent. So it's nice to go back, and this book takes place before all the recent changes with the Bendis coming on to Superman books. So it's nice to look back on this relationship. Really fun stuff. This book has been fun. Super Sons has never not been super fun to read, and that's just pleasurable. This book only has 5 issues left. It's going to be sad to see it go when it goes, but I am going to be interested to see what the new dynamic between Damian and Jonathan is going to be. But it's nice to step back just a little bit, just back in time a few months, to when we had this Jonathan and Damian. Another thing released from DC was this Man and Superman 100-page spectacular. What is this? It is a Marv Wolfman story that has been shelved for years. You remember that Superman Confidential book? It was a 5-issue series, I think, or a 5-issue arc for that Marv Wolfman wrote. But the book got canceled. They never released it, so here it is, right here. And it's 100 pages, or it's pretty. It's big, it's thick. I haven't read it yet. But Marv Wolfman's coming into my town this year, so I'm definitely going to talk to him about it. That'd be really cool. The Girl in the Bay is a new one from Dark Horse Comics. This is written by veteran J.M. DeMatteis with artwork by Corin Howe. James Devlin rounding out the creative team. Really like this book. It's really cool. It's about this woman who's murdered in 1969, and then all of a sudden she finds out that she's not quite dead, but the world's not quite what she remembers. Really interesting stuff. I thought the artwork was very, very solid. I thought the story was really good. The dialogue was great. J.M. DeMatteis knows what he's doing. He is a veteran in the industry. This is one of your sleeper hits of the week. This book was really, really cool and came out of nowhere, and I thought it was pretty decent. So I'd highly recommend that you check it out. From Aftershock, we have Oberyn, number 1. This one's from Ryan Parrott. You may know him as the writer on Go Go Power Rangers. He's doing a fantastic job on that one. Milo Slavkovic on the artwork, and I really like this one. A nice, fun, kind of light fantasy tale, but it's not quite so light. It's got a little bit of depth. It's got some darkness to it, but it's got some fantastic artwork and coloring. Great stuff. Really like it. Charles Pritchett rounds out the creative team. Ryan Parrott really has enticed me. I'm not typically the biggest fan of fantasy stories, but this kind of captured every bit of Narnia I liked, a little bit of Lord of the Rings that I liked, and a little bit of just fun, right? A little bit of Guillermo del Toro in there as well. Really fun stuff. I thought that was great. So those are your 2 like super sleepers of the week, maybe. You might want to check those ones out. Another one you might want to check out, believe it or not, is Red Sonja. Red Sonja, number 1. Why did I read a Red Sonja book? I barely touched Dynamite stuff, especially Red Sonja. Well, because Mark Russell wrote this one, so I definitely I was interested, right? Then I looked at it, and I was like, oh, wow. The artwork's pretty solid. And the artwork is done by, let me figure it out, Mirko Kolak and Deborah Kelly on the coloring, and Haas from Panel by Panel and Strip Panel Naked on the lettering. A really great creative team that really took a book that's typically just a sword and sorcery TNA book and did something really cool with it. Really grounded, really fun, quirky. It's got a nice sense of satire about it. Great violent artwork, and I really liked it. It's everything a Red Sonja comic book should be, minus all the stuff that you're probably used to it being, and maybe if you don't read Red Sonja, maybe it's the reason why you never read it, like me. But this was actually really, really cool. I thought it was really neat. Mark Russell and company did a great job on that one. That was interesting. Vindication number 1 is a new one from Image Comics, Top Cow. It's from M.D. Mary, Carlos Mika, Dim Jr., and others, including Matt Hawkins, I believe. This one, it's a story about a wrongly imprisoned black man he was wrongly imprisoned for a crime. Years later, they find out that the evidence didn't hold up. They release him, and this cop is still like intent that it's him, but is it because the cop's racist? And it's an interesting premise, an interesting story, something that deserves to be explored, but the execution just didn't do it for me. It was a little too clunky in the artwork and the dialogue. It just kept kind of like misstepping throughout it, never really put me into a nice narrative flow. I do like that cover, though. It's slightly reminiscent of the Sankonia album. You can just imagine Andre and Big Boy in front of that, right? But I thought that one was okay. A decent effort, but it just didn't quite come across 100% in execution. Cemetery Beach number 6 is one of the best ones of this one yet. Seriously, this book has just been this fun, high energy, high action sci-fi in this crazy parallel world sci-fi thing. Really fun stuff, right? It's Warren Ellis and Jason Howard. It's basically Ellis creating something that Jason Howard wants to draw. So it usually has very little words and really great, gritty, textured artwork that just does action like nobody else. But this one starts picking up a little bit of nuance in it, a little bit of depth, a little bit of richness, just a little bit, but not enough to distract you from the crazy, mind-bending violence and action that's in this book. Warren Ellis and Jason Howard do a great job. Does Howard color himself? He sure does. Phonographix does the lettering, and the lettering's pretty top-notch too. And it's really good stuff. Some interesting ideas, exactly what you're used to in a Warren Ellis book. But really, really high energy. Really fun stuff. Prodigy, fun in a violent sense, if you know what I mean. Prodigy number 3 is here, right? That's number 3. Yes, number 3 from Netflix Comics, from Image Comics, Miller World, all that stuff. So Mark Miller, Raphael Albuquerque. One of my favorite Miller World books is Hulk, so it's no surprise that the team of that book reuniting would provide one of my favorite books since then, right? I love Prodigy. I think it's great. Issue 3 gets a little clunky. Maybe there's too much compressed into one issue, and the way it kind of jumps from scene to scene just kind of disconnects from the flow of the story, the flow of the narrative. But the artwork by Albuquerque is just beautiful, luscious, high energy, beautiful coloring. Does he color himself? No. Marcello Maiolo and Peter Doherty rounding it out as the colors. Some really funny moments too, especially with the sharks. And don't worry, Prodigy, we ain't gonna tell nobody. But I really like that book, and it's probably, like I said, it's my favorite Miller book since Huck, and it's probably no surprise that Albuquerque was the artist on Huck as well. The art's just slam bang fantastic. So that's what I read this week. That's what I thought about it. Vault Comics wins the day, but Blade was so awesome in Avengers. Some real fun stuff from DC. Some sleeper hits like Oberyn and Girl in the Bay to be on the lookout for. Cemetery Beach, the penultimate issue of that one, by the way. The Green Lantern, Justice League, really interesting stuff. This is a great comic book day. So thank you guys so much for checking out the video. What are you reading? What do you like? What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments down below. I really do appreciate you guys joining us here every week for the weekly comic book review. We'll be back next week, of course, for the weekly comic book review, but be on the lookout this weekend for the weekly pop culture wrap-up. And, of course, the return of Robbie Rants Live. We took off for the Super Bowl, and yes, I was wrong. I said the Rams by 10. And it was, in fact, the Patriots by 10. So anyway, thank you guys so much for everything. Check us out at Pop Culture Philosophers for podcasts and a whole lot more. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups. David Hatch is the best. Keep on rocking with us. Keep on reading.